45th edition of Track Announcer's Notebook. For those of you who may be tuning in for the first time, my name's Pat Gonzalez. I've been around racetracks a long time, and it's an honor to have our special guest tonight, five-time Daytona 200 champion Miguel Duhamel. But before we get to Miguel to talk about his career, some of the incredible races and what he's doing right now, we're going to go to our regular feature, Nodell's Notes, to catch up on some of the things that are happening in the world of motorcycling and motorcycle racing. Stuart?
Yeah, thanks, Pat. Just we're going to get through into, well, first, obviously, our guest here. So I wanted to welcome Miguel for joining us and thanking him, being so generous with his time. But for Nodell's Notes, we're going to start off with the Supercross series. And they raced this past week, well, during the week, actually, on Tuesday and Saturday were rounds 2 and 3 at, they were racing in Houston.
Houston, yeah. And there you see Cooper Webb becoming the third. He's a former AMA Supercross champion of a couple of years ago, took the KTM to the win. Ken Roczen in second, and there you see the rest of the results. Justin Barcia, who won the opening round, finishing fourth. But after 3 races, and AMA Supercross is doing a lot of triple headers this year because of the COVID-19 restrictions, it was those are the results from, is that the Saturday results with Tomac? I think that's maybe the two. Okay. So Barcia won, Tomac won, and Cooper Webb won. And what that means after 3 rounds, there are only 10 points separating the top 8 riders in the championship. There you see it there. Ken Roczen, the leader by 1 point, actually a tie for second, and right on back through Dylan Ferrandis, who is at 50 points. So they've got, I believe, a couple of more stops, and then they head to Daytona for the Daytona Supercross. That's coming up on Saturday, March the 6th at the Speedway. They will have a limited number of fans. I'm not sure exactly what that number is going to be.
Yeah, Pat. And then this coming weekend, it is back-to-back. They're at Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium. And they're having a doubleheader there, and they do different track configurations, but within the same facility, back-to-back.
And we'll see. I believe they'll be allowed to have a limited number of fans. And speaking of Supercross, some sad news today on the weekend. 1980 AMA Supercross champion Mike Too Tall Bell. Couldn't believe it. At 6'4", he was riding motocross and Supercross. A great rider, but gone far too early at the age of 63, apparently from a heart attack on the weekend while out riding his mountain bike. I think that's a big shocker for motorcycle racing, particularly the Supercross and motocross community.
And then in MotoGP, Pat, we've had some news with regard to the schedule. There's been a postponement for the round at Austin, Texas at the Circuit of the Americas. They're hoping, I think, if things do open up due to COVID, that maybe they can put it to the back of the season. And also with the race in South America as well being postponed.
Yeah, both Argentina and COTA, the race in Austin, Texas, pulled off of the calendar. They're going to try to reschedule those, but I think, that might be a bit of a long shot. And then
Pro 6 announced this week, Pat, that their new regional series, the rules are up on their website. So for anybody that's watching, or if you wanted to participate in the events, go to the pro6.com website, and they have all the rules there. It's a pretty big file, so I didn't want to try and post it here because it was way too long. But and they're going to have more information with regard to prize money and so forth in the near future.
Yeah, brand new series. I think that's going to attract a lot of Quebec racers, as well as a strong Ontario contingent. And they, of course, will be hosting one of the rounds of the CSBK Championship as well. I think that's the July 11 and 12 weekend.
Yeah. And then we're here with our featured guest,
Miguel Duhamel. Miguel, again, thanks so much for coming on. Looks like we've got one of our biggest crowds live here tonight. Of course, many people aren't quite available 8 o'clock on a Monday night, so they check out these broadcasts a little bit later on when we post them on our YouTube Track Announcers Notebook channel. So Miguel, first of all, let's go back to the beginning. And I believe 1973, my first year of announcing at what was then Mosport, there was this little 5-year-old kid on a 50cc mini bike while his dad was racing, blasting through the infield at Mosport. That had to be you.
Yeah, guilty as charged. Yeah, that was me, and we just loved terrorizing. And my dad was so great about making sure we had fun, even though we should have been paying more attention to his racing. My brother, my sister, and myself, we all had motorcycles, and we set the place on fire.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Gina may have done a little bit of racing, but obviously you and Mario continued on with your racing careers. How early did you get started in motocross in Quebec? You were riding at 5, but when did you get into serious motocross competition?
Well, I started riding about 3.5 years old, bike taught, and then started terrorizing a bit later. And I think I was about 9 years old, give or take, when I did my first motocross race at Cowansville, and that was fun. It was just a test to see if we'd like it, and then we did, and the rest is kind of history as far as my career started out. But I'd like to point out that my sister is the only Duhamel that's undefeated. She did 3 races, and when they had girl races, and obviously racing with us, never took it too easy on her. So when she raced, when they made those races back then, just for fun, but still with all the girls, I mean, she lapped everybody. So she's the only undefeated Duhamel.
Okay, that's fine. I should give Gina more credit. She did do a little bit of racing.
Awesome. Yep.
So when you were starting out in motocross, what was the conversation between you and your dad, and maybe Mario was involved in that, as to when you would make the move to road racing? Because I'm sure that was always in the back of your mind.
Not, motocross was just motocross. The biggest conversation is clean your bike for the love of, and take care of your stuff. We're just being kids. My brother was better at it than I was. And we just tried to win motocross. There was no real talk about road racing besides what my dad accomplished. So, and then my brother, when he left motocross to go road racing, and he was having all kinds of success, winning national championships, winning races. That was the only time that it kind of got in my head when I told my dad one weekend. I remember like it was yesterday. I got up to go walk the track. I wasn't very dedicated as a kid, and that's the problem sometimes with when you have a lot of talent. You just take it for granted. And the competition gets tougher. So either get tougher or leave. So I got tougher. I started training, and I got better at being pro motocrosser. And one morning I got up to walk the track, which I didn't do often. And I was walking, and the track wasn't cut out. The promoter just looked at me, and I'm like, "Where's the track? What are you guys doing?" He goes, "Relax, kid. We'll give you a track." And it really hit home, like, wow, this is not professional racing. I'm not going to make a living at this. And I walked back to the motorhome and told my dad I'm done with motocross, because he made it clear 6 months before that. He goes, "You don't have to race because I race. If you don't want to do something else, we'll do something else." He says, "It's up to you." And even though my career was getting a little bit better motocross, that day I made the call. And then I decided to follow a bit my dad and my brother's footsteps. I go, "Well, I'll give this road racing thing a try." So I started.
Yeah, and you started in the RZ Cup, I believe. This is 1987.
Yeah, I did the school with Michel Mercier, and had some tips obviously from my dad and my brother. Learned a lot there, and then we finally signed up in '87, did a full year of amateur in the RZ Cup, and really good racing. And it was tough to beat those NS 400s. Honda came out with those great little bikes, but it just made me a better racer, and I really enjoyed the challenge, loved Shannonville, and I fell in love with road racing, when I start sliding the front and the rear and start rear steering the bike, because until that happened, coming from motocross with berms and jumps and all these kind of things, I thought it was a little bit boring. But when you push the limit to that point where you're on your knees and you're actually sliding the bike, that's what really hooked me onto road racing from that day on.
So 1 year in amateur, 1988, you've got the expert, the pro plates. And what was it like moving up from amateur into into the pro classes, because 1988, there were a lot of good riders. Steve Crevier was around, Michel Mercier, so many other, Ruben McMurder, I think, was still at it, the late Art Robbins.
Good fellow.
How tough was that first year? And I think you were riding the Manette Sport Kawasaki.
Well, you know, I never heard of Steve Crevier. I'm gonna have to Google that guy. But yeah, 88 was a big, you know, we had a bike that was factory, you know, the Superbike, I should say, not factory, but Superbike, but it was an old bike. But, you know, you get what you get, you know, and rides were tough to get. And we didn't set our ambitions too high. We just see how it goes first year. But I didn't want to do the same mistake. This is really important. I didn't want to do the same mistake I did in motocross. In motocross, when I got really good at schoolboy and junior, I was dominating everything. And I was training and I was winning and I was, you know, getting pretty cocky and obviously, which is normal, I think, for a kid. And I probably should have went to the USA, go race against guys like Eric Keogh that was in my age category and stuff like that. And instead, I was just staying in Montreal and, you know, Quebec and Canada. So anyway, long story short, when I road raced, my number one goal was to go to the USA. So as soon as I started going fast, that was my goal, to go there so I could make a living in racing. And in 88, like you said, the Norm Murphy and Gary Goodfellow and McMurder and all the guys that were in there, Steve Dick and so on and so forth. I mean, it was a tough crowd. So, but I know I felt comfortable with those guys. You know, we were all at a pretty good back and forth off the track and raced pretty hard on the track. And it was a great learning year. And I'm a firm believer the bike handled well and didn't have that much power. And I always liked that exchange better than the other way around. And it made my skills better when I went to America.
Right. And at the end of that 88 season, you were the pro rookie of the year. I think we got a photo of that a little bit later on. We're going to share with everybody. So you're moving fast here. 1989, you're in the U.S. Tell us about that first year.
Yeah, you know, racing in America and Canada still, and trying to get into the USA, trying to actually go to France, because in 88, we had it's never been done before. In 1988, we did the 24-hour of Paul Ricard at Le Castellet in France with my father, my brother, and myself. And it was an idea concocted by Didier Constant. And we loved it right away because we knew it was going to be a big publicity thing. And my dad's real big in Europe, and name is still terrific over there and, well, everywhere, but he was really big there. And we decided to do that. And again, as a privateer team, if we had a better pit stop, we probably have been on the podium that time. My dad was flying out there, considering he hadn't been on the bike forever with the new technology and the brakes. I always remember he always said, like, when I hit the brakes, he was used to giving me a handful, you know, because of the old brakes, the way they were. And he's like, I almost did a front flip. So these things are pretty fast and good. And my brother was super fast and I was fast, and the whole team. I mean, back then it was like 12 factory bikes, maybe more. And we were running top 5, top 7 all weekend and all during the race. So that got a lot of attention, and I got to do some things in Japan and in America and open La Door, and it was really a really big thing for us.
Yeah, you went to a lot of different tracks that year, following year in '89, including the World Superbike round at Mosport.
Yeah.
You were certainly fast enough and on the pace, but that was a bit of a disappointing weekend for you. What do you remember of that weekend?
Well, yeah, I was obviously very disappointed, yes and no. I mean, our Superbike was pretty good, but it was really slow on top speed on the back straight. I mean, Fred Merkel would just leave me. So I had to ride it really hard through the corners, which was great. Again, I like that exchange. My bike handled well. And I remember thinking, like, this is a little bit easier than I thought, even though I had to ride that hard. And I got offline in turn 3 and I hit the bump. It must have been a, you know, Groundhog Day bump or something. The bike just hit so hard and there's no way of saving it. And it was just a really, 6 inches to the left or to the right. I missed that thing maybe all race, and I get on the podium and set my career really going. It had nothing to do with me pushing too hard. It had something to do with just a major hole there in turn 3. But here's the thing that maybe a lot of people didn't realize, and that's normal. My Superbike was destroyed. So we took our 750 stock. Back in Canada, super stock was stock bikes. We put the pipe on it, put slick tires on it, and as a street bike stock, I took off for the second leg of the race. And I battled against Piravino and all those guys for a top 10 the whole race with a stock bike. And that was really confidence inspiring for me. And it was something, I mean, it's kind of hard to believe that a guy with a stock bike was challenging in the top 10, top 15 guys in the World Superbike round in Mosport, especially a fast track like Mosport. So that was a tough weekend. There was a lot of, George Morin and Mike Crumpton, especially Mike, was really disappointed. And I'm like, what do you want me to do? I mean, I'm riding the wheels off. I'm not even supposed to be up here. So we had this conversation a little bit. George was good at calming that. And, the weekend turned out to be pretty good, decently. Unfortunately, we only had one. It was early in the season. We only had one Superbike, and that's the whole story there. But it was Raymond Roche had a funny story, sidetrack. I love Raymond, a good friend of mine. A guy told him to not drive his car down pit lane, and he thought he was Steven Seagal or Terminator and jumped on the hood of Raymond Roche's car to stop him. And Raymond just floored it and then just slowed down, but kind of hard enough to where the guy tumbled off and he turned. And was police involved, but everything the guy didn't get hurt really bad, but it's such a Raymond Roche thing back on the Ducati back days. And he was a funny guy. And that was my whole Mosport weekend. In case I missed any parts, I think I covered it all.
Okay. Yeah, I hadn't heard that Raymond Roche story before. So 1990 rolls along, and I believe that's the year that you and Crevier are teammates?
1990, I'm on Yoshimura.
Right, Yoshimura Suzuki.
I don't think Steve was there. I'm there with Tommy Lynch racing and Rick Kirk. And that year, I mean, the Suzuki was not competitive. It's oil cool, bike would get hot. But that was my first win was in Topeka, Kansas that year in 1990. I beat Doug Chandler. Funny story, the bike was going good, and I'm catching Doug. He's in front of me. I just passed Scott Russell, and I'm getting closer to Doug. And Doug was turning around like in turn 8 every time. It was a little straight, and you look back to see a good measure of distance between him and I. And I'm coming around, and I timed him. I saw them doing that as I'm getting closer and closer. So I'm coming out of the corner, and I see him grab his helmet and his shield to turn around to take a look to see how I am. And I'm behind him, and I'm already waving at him. And then he turned his head, and he just shook his head, and I'm like, this is not good. And he was right. I caught him, passed him, and I won that race. And later on, like the 3 years, we were talking about that. And he's like, yeah, when I saw you waving at me, but like, this is not a good sign. He's coming pretty hard. So that was my first win. It was a pretty good win that year. For Yoshimura, was their first win in many years, and until they got a better bike.
So at this point, is Alan LaBrosse your manager and an agent, and does he put the deal together for you to go to Honda, to Commonwealth Honda?
Yeah, Alan's part of the deal. Obviously, he's going to negotiate. We're talking. We're getting people. People are calling me, and I said, "We'll talk to Alan." And we're always been in cohorts together, like saying what we think we want, what I want, and he goes out and get it. I always set the bar pretty high, and Alan always came through for me, which was always, a good teamwork there. And I was really surprised though to finish the Yoshimura story with Watanabe. I won Topeka, and it was very competitive. And the next year, I remember this like it was yesterday. It was like beginning of almost this time of the year, and we haven't had a call from Yoshimura to renew our contract. And I'm like, man, that doesn't sound too good. And we contact them, and then they announce to us in their best broken English, Watanabe says, we're not hiring foreign riders. And I'm like, the kettle calling the pot black. And I'm like, what are you talking about? But then we went on and looking for a ride. And unfortunately that year, Eddie Ranford got injured severely at Willow Springs, and he lost his thumb and his finger in a big crash in turn 8 at Willow Springs. So right away we got on the phone, and I did a lot of the calling because I talked directly to Martin Adams, and I sold myself. I said, listen, you put me on that bike and I'll be able to win. And he was debating between me and Del Corley back then. And I'm like, I'm going to do this. I know how to do this. You got to trust me. And I told him about my races in Europe and so on and so forth. So finally I convinced him. I'm talking to Martin, short conversation of 45 minutes, long ones are 2 hours. But, so that's the price you have to pay to get the ride. But but we got the ride, and then we went on and did that magic trip to Daytona. It was just fantastic. It's fantastic.
Miguel, going into Daytona in '91, obviously you're very confident. You've got a good bike. The Honda's quick. Were you aware that up until you won, no Canadian rider had won at the Speedway? Your dad had finished second in '68, and only Billy Matthews was the only other Daytona 200 champion, but he won on the beach course, you know, way back in the '40s and '50s. Were you aware of that?
Yeah, I was well aware of it because my dad went going there. Like when I was getting old, I was paying more and more attention to his racing. And man, I was just, you know, we were all disappointed when he didn't win. He would lead, and things would happen to his bike. His chain fell off, and you know, little things that he couldn't help. You know, it's a long race, and it's very hard on the motorcycle. And he won the 250 race, but he never won the big 200-mile race. He won the 100-mile race, and he set records there with BSA and Yamaha and Kawasaki. But anyway, never won the 200. So the significance of Daytona to me, the 200 was it was phenomenal. I mean, to me, to win Daytona, I was hoping in my career, from whenever it started, which it did, in basically in '89, '90, you know, to whenever it was going to end. I'm like, if I can just at least win Daytona one time. That was that was my wish and my goal. That was my I visualized myself doing it. I fantasized about it basically, which is basically the same thing almost. And so going down there, knowing that a person like my father, that was an amazing talent, you know, shifter falls off or oil leak or chain breaks or somebody takes you out, and you know, you don't get that many chances. It's once a year. So going there, and then on '91, I'm out there setting fast time, and Doug Pullen gets the bigger engine from Faraci and goes out and takes my pole position away by 2/10 as we're celebrating the pole position because he did on the last lap. It was magical, you know. And the 600 race, just dominating that, just totally dominating, and then, you know, to win both races. That's what I was doing when I was going around celebrating. I was just like, I can't believe it, I did it. I mean, my career could have ended the next day, and I was like, well, I won Daytona, you know. And to me, that was huge. That was very big, and it was big for my mom and dad, for everybody, because we tried. My dad, he tried many times, and my brother a few times, but he never had good equipment when he did, and so that was good for the family.
Yeah. How special was the celebration in Victory Lane that day? Because I think your whole family pretty much was there with you, and just to set the record straight, your dad did finish second in '68, probably could have won it a bunch of other years, and did have those back-to-back lightweight 250 wins in '68 and '69 for Fred Dealey Imports, the Yamaha distributor at the time.
Oh, it was so special, you know, to have them there, and for them, I'm sure it was not just seeing their son win, but winning at Daytona. I mean, it was a big party for the whole family. We really enjoyed it, and it was a great celebration, and set the wins in our backs for many years to come.
Yeah, and then after your win in '91, it's a few years before your next win, but 1995 was almost a Cinderella year. Again, you won both Superbike and the Super Sport Championship, carrying the #1 plate into Daytona for 1996, and you're up against your nemesis, Scott Russell. Take us through that race in '96 with you and Russell, because I think, as typically happens at Daytona, it comes down to the last lap and who's going to lead coming out of the chicane and who's going to try to draft. Take us through that run for the chicane to the checkered flag for your second win in 1996 on the Smokin' Joe's Honda.
Well, yeah, '96. I mean, '92, I wasn't in town. I was in Europe. '93, I podium, but '94 I was on the Harley. So '95 had a little mishap. So '96, and here we go. And that was a really special year because Scott was going to GPs, and he was Lucky Strike Suzuki, and deservingly so. Scott's a great rider. And he shows up there in the crew, and they're walking around there like they own the joint. I remember that vibe. Me too. I was like, what's wrong with these guys? They felt like they were better than everybody because, you know, we're GP people and Lucky Strike. And I know it really rubbed Al Ludington the wrong way. And me too, but I was so focused on, I got to do this. And so back to the race. Here I am racing Scott. He's on the Suzuki with Michelin. Back then we could have choice of tire. We had Dunlops. But the problem was top speed. I just could not draft and pass him. No matter how great a drive I got out of the chicane. And for the whole race, that's what you do as a good racer. You're planning strategy how to win the race. And, it comes down, like you said, who's going to lead out the chicane and get the draft and pass, which is what they always do in the movies. So you want to make sure that fantasy goes to reality. It'd be nice to do that one time. But I just couldn't pull it off. There's no way I could pull it off. I mean, unless Scott missed a shift, I just couldn't do it. And so my gears were turning in my head. What am I going to do? I tried a few times to break away from him in traffic, try to do that, maybe get him to panic, get him off his game. So here we are, last lap is your question. So I'm like, well, the only way I can win this thing is to lead it out the chicane and do something that nobody has ever done. And to do what I did is I came on the chicane, I got a good drive, and really sold that I was just committing to a good drive and trying to win Daytona. And I know he's licking his chops going, I know I got this guy. So it's good to think the both ways. And so I go down early, and I'm like, I know he's going to be ready for that, but I'm going to go down early and catch him a little off guard on that one part. But then when I went back up to the banking, I'm like, he's not expecting that, and then what's going to happen? And I'm thinking the same thing. We're like, I don't know what's going to happen. I've never done that move coming out of Daytona, the international banking turn 4, doing about 175 miles an hour, heading towards the wall. And I'm like, I want to sell it. I want to scare him enough to where he's got a problem with it. But I'm obviously pretty concerned with the wall coming at me. So I pulled down on the bike, and I remember like it was yesterday. I pulled down the bike on the RC30, and the rear end starts coming around because we're up in the dirty stuff. And before my throttle wrist could slack off, I remember my brain overriding my wrist going like, there's no way we're shutting off after a race that we just did like this. I'm high-siding this bike into the grandstand if I have to. Come and get me out there, but I am not. I am not shutting this thing off. So I slide it, and it looked at that high speed. I guess it comes back in the line, and now I do my little weave, and I hog the inside. I'm like, I'm not going to let him get on the inside of me because that's the shortest part of the racetrack. And he came around, and man, he almost got us. But to win that one against Scott, those disadvantages that I had with the top speed. I mean, luckily I had a great team. My pit stops were spot on. So we're there. We're always together during the race. It was one of my hardest fought wins, and I really felt like I stole one. I really took one away from Scott that probably, could have had it. Maybe he could have done something different. But yeah, that's definitely one that stands in my mind.
Yep. And the official margin of victory, 1/100th of a second after 200 miles of racing. That was an incredible race. And as a track announcer, makes your job easy when you've got that kind of action on the racetrack. We want to just step back for a minute, Miguel. In between the Daytona 200 wins in 91 and 96, you spent a year in 500cc Grand Prix riding for the Yamaha factory out of France. How did that ride come together after your 91 season? And take us through sort of the highs and lows of that.
Well, 91 season, we really put ourselves on the map, winning Daytona both class and coming this close and winning the championship. The aforementioned racetrack, Topeka, took that championship away from me. I was trying to squeeze inside of a lap rider, and I really never thought he was going to come down and do that apex that hard. And I was trying to put that guy between me and Scott. Again, Scott Russell, we have bit of a story there, and he hit my front brake, and I just hit him, and I just lost the front and cost me the championship. It was unfortunate. So 91, anyway, besides that, everything goes really well, and we get invited to the Super Prestigio at the Catalunya, Spain. Remember, Super Prestigio was one-off race. Yep. And I get invited there. Well, now we talk to Christian Serrault, and they have a bike for me, and I'm like, sign me up. I mean, I'm going there. I'm swimming if I have to. So we get there. First time, never tested on the 500 GP two-stroke ever. Just get on the bike at Catalunya. Never been there either, never rode. So go around, learn this beautiful racetrack. And in the race, I set the 4th fastest time, and I finished top 5. I beat Neil. And for a while, that was, with the fastest guy, but they pulled away. And for me, I was disappointed. I kind of wanted to win that race, even though Wayne Rainey was there, and Kaczynski, full of top guys, not all of them, but a lot of them. And I finished fifth, and I came in, and the guys were over the moon. They're like, "Oh my God, you know, you can't believe what you just did." And I'm like, "I'm sorry," but they were like, "No, that was great," you know. So right away they were excited. We talked contract and we signed in one for 92, and that's what got me into GP in 1992. They couldn't believe that a guy that hasn't been on a two-stroke or a 500 or two-stroke, whatever, for so many years that get out there and get on a foreign racetrack, as Cataluna is, and to have such a terrific race against those guys, it was fantastic. And that's how 92 got into GP.
Yeah. And what was it like traveling to a lot of tracks? I'm sure you'd never been on before. How tough was it?
Well, you know, I bought a motorhome. My idea was like, I'm going to be there for 5, 10 years. I'm going to be one of the guys, you know, for sure. I went so well, so I got a big motorhome, shipped it over there. My dad picked it up at Calais, France, and met me at Spain and Jerez. And I remember it was such a problem back then. All different currencies and all different electricities. Like everybody has their own electricity, like it's some sort of like fashion statement. You have to get all these different power cords and everything for your motorhome. So that was a bit of inconvenience. And the camping in Europe, when they say camping, they mean a tent. You don't show up with a 44-footer in a camping area. You know, it doesn't work that way. They're still back in the days with the Roman and the horse buggy. And the roads are the same width there was back when the Roman days. I mean, I'm driving my motorhome, not like, I got my dad sticking his head out one side, going, can we make it through here? We're like bending signs when we got stuff. So that was pretty interesting. And learning all the tracks. You know, Pat, that year what really aggravates me a little bit because I didn't have the best of bike. I was the number 2 rider. Neil McKenzie was the number 1 rider. That year, the Big Bang engine came out. I never got the Big Bang engine, which was made the bike quite a bit easier to ride and better. That's why Honda did it. And everybody went on dominating with that. And I never had that. And here's the other part that was just bad luck. They didn't go to Castellet or they didn't go to Le Mans racetrack. The one year they go to Magny-Cours. Nobody's been there. I didn't like Magny-Cours whatsoever. If they would have went to Le Mans, just my experience there, even though I was struggling with the bike, the chassis was bad. Wayne Rainey complained publicly on the podium. I'd like to thank Yamaha for nothing. They had such a bad chassis, in his opinion, mine too, because I couldn't. This is the only time in my life I went through a corner and actually rode off the racetrack because I mistimed it so much. And I was like, that's not normal. I don't do that. So anyway, so that year there's a few tracks that I knew that they avoided. We didn't go to, you know, we went to Suzuka, the only track I knew, and I was fighting for a podium. I started dead last, and I was fighting with John Kaczynski, Doug Chandler, Mick Doohan for a podium position. And within a couple of laps, and I remember thinking to myself, this was not that hard. I went from 36 to 5th, no problem. And I'm like, okay, just be patient, ride around, get yourself a podium, and that's it. You're going to be here for the rest of your life. And the front end just tucked underneath me and dang the curve for no real reason. I was actually out of the corner picking the bike up and the front end tucked. I must have hit somebody's oil or something because I crashed in the next corner and I didn't brake or nothing. It was just a weird thing. And it was so, I don't mind crashing when I push over the limit, which I've done a few times. And I'll admit to that. And I went in there too hard. But that one, I was like, man, what happened here? This I would have gladly finished 5th. But then after that, for the rest of the season, I didn't know the tracks, and it was an uphill battle for sure.
Yeah. We're going to get to the 1999 Daytona 200 because I think in all your career looking back, it was your finest moment. But before that, I'm going to go to Stuart Nodell. Stuart, I think we've got some questions and comments in the Q&A.
Yeah, we do, Pat. Thanks. I have a few here. I'll go through them one at a time. And the question from Paul to Miguel is if he's kept any of his old race bikes.
Honda, yeah, I got the 2 600 Super Sport bikes that Honda gave me. I always wanted my RC 3091 bike that I won with. I really pushed hard for that. Alan and I didn't. We never could get it. Found out they sold it to somebody else for racing purposes. So I never could keep my Superbikes. Superbikes were loaners from Japan, and they went back. I wanted a few of them, of course, when I went to Daytona with. But I got my 600s, and Honda did give me the first replica Smokin' Joe's. When they made that replica Smokin' Joe 600, I got the first one off the assembly line, and I still have that. So that was nice.
Very cool. And we've got another question. Just where do I start here? Because there's 2 questions that are similar, so I'll just tie them in as one. And what people really want to know is they've heard so much about the Harley Superbike, but what did you really think of it?
No, the Harley Superbike, well, the crew was, here's an example. I get a Daytona, I bring the bike in, I stop, and nobody's like, they're sitting on the wall looking at me. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to do this. Guys, you need to come over here, hold the bike, put a stand on it so I can talk to you. But I mean, because they had no clue, the team was that brand new. They had no idea of racing. So I had to do that, plus the bike development and so on and so forth. Steve Scheibe is a great guy. This chassis of the motorcycle was fantastic, but he was very limited to what they could do. They really wanted to do a USA product, which I applauded, but unfortunately it was a very uphill battle against everybody else. I love the team. The team was great. The guys tried really hard. Harley was great to me. Like when the bike worked, man, I could ride the wheels off that thing. I could make up 10 bike links going into a corner because the bike was I was so comfortable on it. And it was a close call. I almost signed back with them in 95. It was literally that day, minute by minute, I was going back and forth, Harley, Honda, Harley. And they were counterbalancing offers to me. And I'll tell you, it was really close. I almost stayed with Harley because of the chassis and because the bike felt so good and the team, we had a good chemistry. I really felt that, man, we got this thing going good and not have electric problems and so on and so forth. I really could see myself winning on that bike for sure.
Yeah, and Miguel, just to go on with that, I think you actually led a couple of Superbike races later in the year, I think at maybe Brainerd and Mid-Ohio.
Yep, absolutely. Mid-Ohio was a heartbreaker, just a heartbreaker. We're fast all weekends. It's my track. I love that track. And I'm leading the race. Of all the problems we've had with fork leakings and seizing up suspension and electronics literally catching fire in front of my eyes and stuff like that, the bike is perfect. The shifter falls off because they didn't tighten the bolts correctly. They didn't do the safety wire. Somebody forgot. And I go to shift and there's no shifter. The bike was working perfect. And I really thought I could win. And the funny story, Pascal Picard, because we're good friends, he was behind me on the Ducati, and he said he laughed his ass off because Miguel was riding so hard. I couldn't believe it. I was throwing the bike around so hard when I was in front of him, and it would have been like that for the whole race. But unfortunately, the shifter fell off. So the next weekend, Pat, it's Brainerd, Minnesota, and I am adamant with Alan. I don't even want to go. I mean, we can't win at Mid-Ohio and Loudon, which we race at Loudon too. I'm like, how am I going to win at Brainerd with a mile-long straight?
Yeah.
I was really, it was a tough season on me, physically and mentally. It was very difficult. This is inside talk. I never let the team know and never did that, but this is inside ball with me and Alan. So I did go. I honored my contract, of course, and I was done all my life. And I show up at Brainerd, and I love Brainerd. I had such a good track record there, and we take off, and we're leading this race. And I am leading. And I couldn't believe it. Every lap, I thought somebody's going to come flying by me. And again, here's a perfect example of what happened, guys. What I'm talking about, my team didn't know. I come around the last corner to the drag strip. My entire team is sitting on the wall with their arms crossed, just smiling. No pit board, no plus minus, no nothing. They're just like happy I'm leading. And I go back and I'm like, what's going on back there? And I am so focused on trying to win this race that I'm not even looking, and I start pulling away. I only knew I pulled away when I rode a little too hard, again, admitting, and I go off the track. And then I almost got back on the track before they passed me. And back then, Jamie James, Colin Edwards, Troy Corser, there was some Tiger Showa, Krebby, everybody was there. It was a tough crew. And I went from 15th back to second place, passing all these guys again because the bike handled so good through turn 1 and 2 and all the other turns, but there was really special. And on the last lap, I got a little slide, and I got Troy Corse on the Ducati and Jamie James, and they're fighting for the championship, and they have good bikes. And I did just a little slide. The bike just bogged. We didn't have that much horsepower, and it was a heavy bike. And they both got me right before the finish line, just close from being on the podium. So those were the two big races with Harley, and like I said, good guys, and almost stayed with them. Went on with Honda, and I think that was the right decision.
Yep, indeed. 95, the #1 plate in Superbike and 600. Stuart, I think we've got a couple of more questions.
Yeah, just one other one we'll ask. And I will point out, I was at Mid-Ohio for that race, and the crowd roared like you wouldn't believe when Miguel went to the front of the pack. That was a cool race.
I could hear it.
Just one other question is, are you ever coming?
Go ahead.
Are you ever coming back to Pittsburgh to golf?
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, we have a pretty good record. I don't remember how we did there, but we tried really hard to win that tournament. But I enjoyed it a lot. Went down there with Ron Heben, and I used to play golf pretty good. I still play a lot of golf, so I'd like to have a rematch there, see if we can win that tournament.
Okay, Stuart, maybe we can go to the little photo collage we put together here, courtesy of NASCAR Archives. We've got some Daytona 200 photos, as well as courtesy of Colin Fraser, who sent us in some awesome images. So, Miguel, we're going to take a little bit of a walk down memory lane here, and we'll let you do the commentary. There's Jamie James and you holding up the trophy.
Yep. Pointing to mom and dad in the stands, I believe, and Thomas Stevens there. And, you know, it was just a great, great weekend, and way above my expectation. I knew I was going to be competitive. I was hoping to, and boom, it turned out that we're victory podium. And that's the face and the happiness of a guy that's content that fulfilled a career goal in a very short time. That was pretty awesome.
This is 96.
Yeah, 96. I mean, that win with Scott that we talked about was just beyond belief. And, I had a great year that year going, and we just came up a little short, unfortunately. We had, again, it's funny enough, I guess it's something that happens to me. My shifter fell off, and I was stuck in the second gear at the Sears Point and couldn't score enough points there. And then the last race at the Las Vegas, Doug Chandler rode a great race, and I just couldn't beat him, and he won the championship by just a few points. In retrospect, at Brainerd that year, I had a at Brainerd, Doug Chandler, his engine broke like in two laps. But because Brainerd only had like 12 entry that year, 15, he got 14th position. He got a bunch of points. When I had my problem, I had a problem when I crashed. I crashed coming out of turn 2 in the Laguna Seca while leading on the last lap. There was like 35 riders there, so I got 0 points. I was scored 0 points, and my bike caught on fire. I was going to ride it home on the rims, but it was on fire. That's too much. And that was just really, really unfortunate. Still not sure what happened there. Was some sort of weird high side. But that was the difference from me winning back-to-back championship. Is one race, the race I DNF on the last lap, there was full grid, and the race he DNF on the second lap, there was nobody there, and then the shifter and so on and so forth. So still a great year, great, a lot of wins and a lot of fun. That's 95 was a good year.
Yeah, there's the year you won both Super Sport and Superbike. That's
and established the win record that's never really been broken. 7 wins in a row that I beat Wayne Rainey's Superbike. 7 wins in a row at different weekends, not in double headers, because theoretically it could have been 14 wins in a row. Who knows? But those were single race weekend wins, which I think are harder to do. And then I did 13 wins in a row on the 600 too. That's never been beaten in the Super Sport. So that was a good year. And this is me through the years here. That's 96, and probably that's 2001, I guess, on the left. Honda was there's something a little strange with Honda in 600. They lost a lot of love to winning that racetrack. Here's 99. 99 was just a
Matt Mladen, 1/100th of a second. I remember that race.
Yeah,
with you guys going at it.
Yeah, and, I'm going to be honest. There's no point to not being honest, but I was pretty exhausted. I was as tired as I've ever been on a motorcycle. I think it was probably some drugs from the operation I had in late December, or the bone graft. I was, and I had a few operations before that to try to fix it. So I wasn't in the best condition to race. The 600 race went well, and I was lucky I won that. But in the Superbike race, yes, that bike was great. It gave me a terrific bike, obviously, and I was able to ride it really well. But maybe 20 laps into it, I was dehydrated. I was exhausted. And I was almost hoping that my team would do a bad pit stop, because every time they did the pit stop, I'd come out and I'd be tied with Matt. And there's no way I'm letting Matt go. I mean, I'm a racer, competitor to my dying day. And I'm like, he's there. But if we had a bad pit stop and I would have came out and he would have been like 10 bike links or 20 bike links gone, maybe I would have gave it a push. But it wouldn't have taken that much to break me. But fortunately, my team were great. Brian Uchida came up with the water. There was a little camelback, so I could grab the water off his back, and I take the water. The sip of water was like 20 Red Bulls. It gave me energy like you wouldn't believe, and I was able to do that fight. Now, back to what you said before about the chicane. Yes, you're not supposed to lead out of chicane. It's not the smartest move to do. I did in 96 to win the race where I did. But in 99, when I let out the chicane, I was so exhausted, I didn't really care. I said, if I lose this race and one person gives me any grief, after a nap, I will beat that person to a pulp because I was just exhausted. I felt that I had done beyond what was expected of myself. Even for myself, I never thought I was going to win 600 and be in position to win Superbike. And I just came out. I gave it a good run. I did a little weaving, not like I was supposed to or could have. My leg was hurting too bad. And I just stayed on it. And it was another photo finish.
Yeah.
And I tell you right now, Pat, my first idea was I'm going to ride this bike through the tunnel, go back to the Hampton Inn across the street where my room is, somehow just jump off the bike and hop to my bed and go to sleep because that's about all I wanted to do. But luckily, during the cool-off lap, I got a bit more energy from realizing what I just accomplished and decided to partake into the celebrations.
Yeah. Is that your finest moment, that double win in 99? Because as close as things were with Scott Russell in 96, that one I think was about a 1/10, 1/100th of a second. It was also very, very close. And then the race for third, you saw in that picture there, Rich Oliver got third. He just was able to get by, I believe, Bostrom to grab third. So
Yeah.
both the win and third were extremely close.
Yeah, no, it was great. It's hard to pick one because in 96, yeah, I was healthy, but my bike was slow. I was not supposed to. How do you win a race with a slow bike from the chicane to the finish line? And then in 99, when I'm not even supposed to be, I am literally, when I showed up at Daytona 99, I said, if I can get top 10, something in there, maybe a little bit better, at least I have points, and then I have a month to recuperate from my leg. Hopefully it'll be healed better, and I can go on, and build that championship. To win the 600 and then to be in a position to win the 200 and to win the 200, that's one that, Pat, I guess I got to go with you. Like my expectations are very high. And when I pull stuff off, I mean, I saw it. I really thought I could do it. And when I do it, I'm good with that. Obviously, I attained that goal. But that one is definitely up there. For me to be able to do that, you would have told me that before the race, I would have probably told you you're a little bit high. Or there's something wrong with you.
Yeah. Well, when I saw you earlier in the week there in the pits going out for practice with the cane and having to be helped onto the motorcycle, I mean, deep down I was rooting for you, but I didn't think you had a hope and a prayer to win another Daytona 200.
Well, I wasn't there to win it, to be honest with you. Like I said, and a few times when I came in, the guys were late to grab the bike, and we broke a few, rivets on the fairing because I was like, I can't put my leg on the left side, guys. I'm going down. I'm lifting my leg. That's about it. So no, that was amazing. But here's another little interesting story. You might the people might find pretty interesting. I was going to do an interview with Chris Carr. Remember, you used to do that interview at
Chris Carter. Yeah, the late Chris Carter. We lost Chris a few years ago now.
Yeah. And he did that interview every year. And, I was there with my cane and my mom and dad, and Kenny Roberts was there. And he was interviewing Kenny before me. And I'm sitting right there. I'm like looking in their face, like 10 feet away. And they start talking about how there's no talent in America. And I'm like, back then, I was kind of the talent in America. I'm like, what are you talking about? In 95, I won everything. I mean, 96, I mean, I won. I mean, I'm coming back with this broken leg. I've established, I went to GP. I was just blown away that these two guys were just in front of me talking about there's no talent in America, really, and there's nothing to go to GP with. So I was the next to be interviewed. And what I just did, I got up and whispered extremely loudly, basically, said things that I'm not going to repeat now. And I walked out of there, and Dean Adams was there, and he saw the whole thing. And Dean Adams never told me later. He said, "Man, when I say get out of there, you're so mad." He goes, "I think he's going to win." And I limped my way home and went and I never talked to him again. I never was able to forgive him from that because I'm like, come on, guys, I'm right there. Why are you being so rude? But
so did you do the interview with Chris Carter?
No,
you walked out.
I was going to go over there and beat him up with my cane. You know,
Okay.
My mom was there, my dad, and they kind of told me, no, just walk out. And I'm like, well, first of all, I'm going to limp out. And I was like, they knew exactly how I felt about it. By the way. I did not whisper. I told them to, go jump off a bridge.
Okay. Well, you might be the only racer that ever walked out of the Chris Carter radio show. On we go, Stuart.
Yep. Great pick right there. Well, the pick before, and that was Brainerd, and that pick right there, I got to tell you, I was Kawasaki, teammate with Scott, and Eddie was in town, and we all wanted a piece of Eddie. We all wanted to beat Eddie so bad, because Eddie's Eddie. It's Eddie Lawson. It's the man. And in that race, I didn't get a great start, and I was fighting with Aaron Slight, and I passed him finally, and I started breaking away, and I could see I was catching Eddie and Scott. Maybe they were like, playing a little bit of game, and I could catch him. I was catching him. I was like, all right, one more good lap, Miguel, and I'll be in their draft coming out of the infield. And once I'm in their draft, I'm in. Then it's all three of us who's going to win Daytona. Probably wouldn't have won it. Eddie's bike was pretty fast, and it's Eddie Lawson. So, but I wanted to be such a part of that group. And going into turn one, I got a false neutral, and the part of me wanted to just slam it in gear and try to make the corner, and the other part of me was like, nah, let's just go straight, get the right gear, put in the right gear, and try to crap what we did, which we did. We got top three, which was still awesome to be in that company, and got third. But man, wish I didn't get that neutral. I would have loved to be dicing up with Scott and Eddie and see what we could have done up there.
Yep, and here you are on the
Brainerd. That's Brainerd right there. There's Mike Smith and Raging Cajun, Jamie James, and Pascal Picot, Colin Edwards, Troy Corser, Fred Merkel on the Kawasaki, Tiger Shola. Everybody that was there, could be there, was there. And here I am leading on the Harley, and the Harley was just, me and the Harley really gelled. I mean, I'll tell you guys, I rode that thing really, really hard, and it was fun. I don't have any regrets about it. And, I'm happy I could give them the exposure and the wings to keep pushing that project. I think it was really great to have it in America. I wish it would have won. That's me in 1990. That might be Topeka. That's the number 97. That's me in 1990 with the Yoshimura factory and Yuji and Watanabe, and those guys were great guys. Here in 250, John Cornwall is in this picture.
Yeah. And this is a special photo for me. There you are on the Yamaha
17.
Yeah, and Cornwell and Crevier on the Team Ciampini Aprilias. Looks like that's the International Horseshoe at Daytona. But
yeah, and I didn't do a lot of riding on the Yamaha because we had an Aprilia, but it kept seizing. We couldn't get the thing going more than 2 laps without seizing, and for some reason we never figured it out. So at the last resort, we went with an 80. That was an 89. Yeah, so an 80. We went with the 88 Yamaha that he had from the year before, and here's a funny story. So I'm racing. I get up to 4th or 5th, I think. Might be 5th. And the guys in front of me are gone, Kaczynski and all that. And behind me is Cornwall. And I'm like, hey, there's Cornwall. So I come around banking 1 and 2 to go to the back straight to go to chicane. And I figure it'd be fun to take a long look at him and wave at him. How you doing back there, John? Well, I turn around. It would seem that the bike decided to go right more than I thought. And I'm heading for the wall, the retaining wall between turn 2 and the chicane. I turn as hard as I can. I counter steers and I go like this. I hit up on the wall with my 2 wheels, kind of like a skateboarder, and bounce back on the track, wobble a bit, and go back wide open because I don't want to lose any time. And I whip my head back to see if Cornwall saw it, and John Cornwall was like this. And I always remember he just shook his head, and I laughed, and then kept that position stay the way it is, and I finished in front of it. But he remembers that because he saw that go like, I'm sure I don't know what he was thinking, but he was surprised. So was I. Sometimes, you got to be a kid out there. Oh, that's in 1988, that the 24-hour of Boldor, my brother and my dad. And my dad many times said it, and I agree. Sometimes he was so fast. I think people thought it was me or my brother, but it was my dad. He was flying on that thing. He was my age. He was 53 years old. So it was pretty amazing that what he pulled out there for the whole clan. There we are. They didn't tell me this is going to be the official picture, so I just took my helmet off. I didn't really fix my hair.
And I call this the Battle of the Mustaches. This is 1990. Yeah, I give you, you got 9.5 from the Russian judge, and I got an 8.5. But this is the Champion Spark Plug gave out the award there in 1988, Pro Rookie of the Year. And yeah, my mustache doesn't look like that these days, as you can see. But remember that that well.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And Stuart, we've got a couple of more. Here's the guy on the far right, Alan Labrosse, and you know all the folks here, Murphy, Crevier, Tommy Douglas, Ruben, Steve Dick, Michelle Mercier, and Wyatt in the front, and of course Rick Hobbs. And I was glad to see that Rick is now, I guess, chief technical guy with Moto America. He's got a nice promotion. I'm sure he'll do a great job.
Yes, I agree 100%. He's a good guy, and he's got a good, you know, he's a great mechanic, great racer, but he's also a very cordial guy, and he does good calls. So it's going to be great for that series.
And here you are on the Yamaha.
Yeah, that bike was just a stock bike. Listen to this story. I was racing that bike at Mossport, and I had a horrible wobble. So we came up with an idea. We took one of these BMW steering dampers that you can't adjust and put it on. So we fit it on. Of course, you fit it on. That's what proprietors do. But it didn't cure the problem. It wasn't strong enough. So we had the great idea. Well, I didn't, but Richard Dunn from Monette Sport had the good idea. Like, let's bend. If we bend the shaft, we'll create more stiction, so the thing will be harder. That's how we adjusted the steering damper in 1987, I think it was. That was not a good idea. So I had a terrific speed wobble going to the Moss corner, which I high-sided off the bike and destroyed that motorcycle. And almost, I broke my lower back, a vertebrae, because I didn't have a back protector, and lost my gloves because I had motocross gloves on. This is before that experience. And I was lucky to walk away from that one. There's Monette.
Yeah, the Kawasaki Monette Sport in 88.
Yep. Yeah, mom and dad.
Yeah,
and
they were pretty much with you, Miguel, right from the start, right on up to I guess when you finally retired. They went to, I would think, most of your races.
Oh yeah, they love racing. They're born into it, and mom and dad loved it. It wasn't there wasn't pulling on one side of the the rope to go this way. Mom loved racing as much as my dad, and they did races. And see my dad's story. He organized races, and then he became the champion that he is, that which we'll never see again. Be snowmobile, cars, and motorcycle, dirt track, and the list goes on and on. When you think about it, it's almost like you're making up a story. But they love being there. Like I always tell people when I told them my speech when I was in the Hall of Fame, I go, racing is like a big family. You don't love everybody, but they're still family, and it's great to show up every weekend and chit chat and talk, and that's the reason why people do the sacrifice racing. You want to race, you want to be good, you want to have good things, but it's fun to be part of that group too. It's a nice circus atmosphere. Yeah, that's the electric bike. In 2012, I went to do the race in France, Le Mans. Funny story. I was motocrossing 6 months before that, and I hit a false neutral in a triple. I was at in a racetrack in California, and came up short, like I said, and I shattered my pelvis in 4 places, 8 places, pushed my broken femur, I guess it was strong, so it went through my pelvis, and broke my right wrist. And just a dumb thing. I'm just having fun with buddies. I was the only guy doing the triple, and guess why nobody else was doing it? Because it's kind of hard, but I was doing it until that. I have a lift in my left side because of my legs shorter, and I arranged that. I fixed it so I don't get false neutrals anymore because it's dangerous. Fast forward to the electric bike. The guy calls me up on nowhere. He goes, "Hey, Miguel, you want to go do this world championship race in Le Mans?" I'm like, "Le Mans? I love Le Mans. Sure." I'm just like, I've been 2 months in a wheelchair. My girlfriend's been pushing me around. I just started walking with a walker, and I just got my cast off my right wrist. But I'm thinking electric bike racing, how hard can this be? So I met him at a go-kart track. He wanted to go-kart. I said, I can't. I said, I sprained my wrist, mountain biking. Racers were always lying a lot of the time to get a ride, And my hip was pretty good. The Dr. Sylvain here in Vegas did a great job putting it back together. I got 8 screws holding the 8 bones together and all that. So we go to France, fly over there, and the bike is terrific. And I really enjoyed it. Even though it's 850 pounds, it handles like a two-stroke almost because there's no inertia on the engine. It's pretty amazing. And Lightning Motorcycle, they did a terrific job on that bike. And we go over there and we won. And it was a really good race and exciting for the crew and everybody. And when I changed my leathers when I went to dinner that night, I forgot that my scar was really new. And there were detectives. And my mechanic was like, "Hey, that scar on your butt looks pretty new. What happened there?" So that's when I confessed what happened and told them I got injured, but I knew I could win because I love Le Mans so much. And I knew they had one of the best bikes. And it was the best bike. Went out there and it was a world championship round. And it'd be great to be back at Le Mans and see all the people and to be able to win it was awesome.
Thanks, Stuart. We've got a couple of more questions for Miguel.
Yeah, we do. I'll just go to the Q&A here, Pat. One of the questions from Stu Shaw, Miguel, is which was your favorite RC, the 30, the 45, or the 51?
Well, they're all great bikes, but the RC45 and 98 and 99, and those are the 2 years I just unluckily got really injured, really bad. One because it started raining at Loudon, and the other one because I had a 600 that blew up that I shouldn't be racing because Honda gave up on the 600 and they were really slow and should not have been racing it at all. But yeah, 98, 99, man, that bike was on rails. Obviously, I won with a broken leg in 99. So I knew, I told my dad, Dad, when my leg healed and everything, I'm going to win everything. And we did have the year before you had 4 wins in a row. And that year we won Daytona. So that would have to be my best bike. It was based off the RVF at the Suzuka, and they were very proud of that bike. And it was a terrific bike. I mean, the RC51 was no slouch, and the RC30 was like it's the closest, I guess, now that I rode the Ducati one time with some friends at a track day, it was kind of like that. They made it very small. It was very tiny, kind of like still bigger, but still was a fun bike to ride too.
And then our last question, Pat, is from Alex Coelho, who's the Canadian that's actually scheduled to do this year's Daytona 200. He's asking if it was true, Miguel, if you were actually scheduled to race Daytona 200 last year. And if so, what's the story behind it? And would you come back?
Yeah, and that's true. That's 100% true. I had a good bike. I had Gary Dean was putting the bike together. Gary Dean and I go way back when I was living in California. We were good buddies, and he was a good rider and a great mechanic, really good mechanic, came to be a great mechanic. And we used to go bowling a lot, and I won all the time. So he'll tell you different, but he's lying. So we're good friends, and him and another buddy of mine here, Mark, decided to surprise me and say, "Hey, you want to do Daytona again, get number 6." And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds great." And the bike was put together, and they were at the last minute, I just decided not to do it because I thought that I kind of looked at myself in the mirror and go, "Okay, I'm not a puppy anymore. If I go there, it's not what it used to be. I'm not racing Carl Fogarty and world champions and Scott Russell. I'll be racing some of those guys that have good talent, but other guys that might not know." Every year, even at Daytona, and sometimes there was people there. I was like, "Why is this guy here?" So my level of reservation became higher, and I let him know in advance. I go, "Listen, guys, you got to make it worth my while. I understand that you're doing so much work, and I appreciate that. And I'm very thankful. And I know we have a chance, but I go, I can't lay in a hospital bed in Halifax Hospital in Daytona and say I did all this for nothing just because I wanted to do for a kick because I thought it'd be fun, I thought, I got to be able to get to Mark Bodecker is the guy that put the deal also together. Really, really good guy, good rider too. Does a lot of track days, and I've done a lot of track days with him. And anyway, we just couldn't come to an agreement as far as that goes. So for me, it was just for me. I mean, I don't mind being in the hospital. Unfortunately, it happens. That's what racing is. But I said, if I can be in the hospital and have a little bit of cash in my pocket, at least I can say, well, I'm paying some bills while I'm getting myself fixed up, But to be there, and if everything goes wrong, obviously that's the worst case scenario. I was like, I wouldn't forgive myself. I have a good life now. I cycle, like we talked about, road bike, mountain bike, motocross. I do track days sometimes with some friends, and I play a lot of golf. I'm a member at a golf course here at Bears Best, and I was just risking a lot there. I've already done that quite a bit. So that's what happened. And then finally, there was no race. COVID came around. So.
Yeah, even if you'd agreed to go, it wouldn't have happened because anyone who was at Daytona on Friday, March the 13th last year when they called that riders meeting and canceled the bike weekend will remember that day forever. Miguel, before we let you go, that is an awesome trophy room. I think you got a couple of Daytona 200 trophies there. Why don't you give us just a quick rundown on the hardware there on the wall and on the shelves?
Well, that's Daytona. It's my 2003 Daytona Win. That was a great win because not great for my friends, but it was racing my friend Curtis Roberts and Ben Bostrom. You know, RC51. The bike was really good. I was in full control and came up and did a nice draft pass move. I did the normal way, if you will. I came out as she came behind Curtis, drafted him and drafted Ben and passed him. And that's 2005, my only 600, when they went back to 600 cc bike. I won one time in 2005, I believe. Could be mistaken. But anyway, that was my last Daytona 200 win up there. And that's me on at Sears Point here. I don't know if you can see in the corner a bit there. And that's me on the MotoGP bike in 2007. I don't like bringing that up because the bike was pretty good, but we had a problem. I had to come in, and I wish I had another shot at it. But that's it. That's my playroom here. That's my little museum for Miguel.
And how many of the Rolex watches over the years do you still have?
Well, let me see.
That's one you're wearing now?
Yeah, I got all three of them. I got 3 pole position and 5 wins. Back in the days, pole position got you the Rolex. Yeah. So I have 3 of those, and I still have them all. And now the Rolex goes to the race winner. And just to update that Daytona situation, I did speak to Kevin Elliott earlier today. The 200 is on. Of course, that was announced last week. Purse, I believe, is still $175,000, and for the top Canadian, Kevin has put up an additional $1,000. Might be a little bit challenging getting down there with the border closed and so forth, but I think it is possible. Stuart, I think we may have a couple of more questions. We're going a little bit over time, but it's not every Monday night we have a 5-time Daytona 200 champion on the show. So we'll go a little bit over time here. What are the last couple of questions you've got? And if there's anybody online who'd like to ask a question before we let Miguel go, hop on the Q&A and send those through. Stuart?
Just a couple of quick ones. Yeah, first, Nathan Naslin just wanted to say great interview and thanks to Miguel for joining us tonight. Really well done. Patrick is asking, what's Miguel's favorite track day bike?
You know, I was very lucky, fortunate. Honda gave me lent me a Fireblade, and I was blown away by how good that bike handles. And Kawasaki lent me one of their top bikes. And with automatic shifting now and downshifting, an old guy like me is less exhausting. You don't have to count your downshifting. I love the new bikes. I think they're fantastic, and I really enjoyed both of them. Honda was more nimble, and Kawasaki was more planted, but both bikes I could go really fast with.
Just a couple more quick ones, Miguel. One is from John McBride. What's your golf handicap? He wants to know.
My handicap, I'm at a 5 right now. I have good days and bad days. I shot 1 under once, so I'm proud of that. But I'm trying to. I'm still working on it. It's a never-ending project.
Yeah, it's a tough game. And then my question actually was, since we've been seeing so many guys go and doing the International Classic in Australia, would that ever be something that you would even entertain or consider?
You know, I'm healthy, my body's good, and I think if somebody would pony up some money, make it worth my while, why not? I mean, I do those track days, and like I said, the bikes are so good now. I mean, the bikes they sell in the showroom are what I rode factories not that long ago. Well, no, it's long ago, right? But still, it's amazing. You never know. You know, I still can be convinced. You know, you never know.
All right, we've got a few. I don't know how much more time you want to go, Pat, but there's a bunch.
Miguel, you can go a little over time, a few more laps.
Sure, I still got a little bit of wine left.
Okay, all right.
We've got how did the Canadian NASCAR drive come together?
You know, that was Alan LaBrosse again. We were talking about it and really wanted to try. And the first ride, the Mosport, was my best car and was my best ride. And I kind of like, I didn't know how to ride to rev it. I found that out in the race. I was like 700 horsepower, not horsepower, but RPM too low. And my last lap times were just as fast as the leaders. I had such a great car. I really regret I didn't push it harder there. But that was a lot of fun. A lot of good guys there, a lot of good racing. And
then we've got, do you ride a street bike? And if so, what do you ride?
Yeah, I got a Metropolitan little scooter. I like riding around town. I don't like, anything much better. I don't have anything else. I got my motocross bikes. I don't have a street bike. When I had my street bike, I would go a little bit here and there, but I like the scooter. I like to make eye contact with the drivers out here at Summerlin, where I'm in Vegas. It's a nice little community, and sometimes I'll take it to go here and there, and that's my fun.
And then finally, we know that there was an incident with you earlier in the year in Vegas riding your bicycle. I think someone had shot a pellet gun at you. Are you okay?
Yeah, no, that was a crazy thing. I was up on myself riding. We just put our dog down, Golden Casey. She was, 13 years old, or she was pretty old, and it was time for her. So I went out for a long ride to get it out of my head. I was by myself, and this car came up behind me, and I heard the poof, the shot, and hit me in the head, and I was bleeding profusely. I thought it was a piece of my head missing, but everybody showed up, and turned out that the pellet was still in my head. I didn't know. I thought it was out, so I had to have a little operation and cut that thing out. It was no fun. It was worrisome that somebody can do something like that, but hopefully going forward, that'll be it.
Well, glad you're okay for that. And then there's just one last one, and I don't know from which race, which Daytona, but someone had said they were there when you ran out of fuel on lap 20. What happened?
No, that was a vapor lock. We the gas tank was not properly insulated, and the heat affected, and it became a vapor lock. Those 600, the 600 Superbike, we'll call them. They call them extreme bikes. They were fantastic little bikes, and actually they were the model for the GP of the 600 bikes in the GP. That we kind of constructed them for that series when they used the 600 Hondas, and they were great bikes. But man, so much bad luck there. You just 1 year I had a big lead, and just like an idiot, lost the rear end. I might have hit something, maybe not. Went over the bars. I tried to hang on to my dear life, and I couldn't. And to finish that story, though, they put me a lap down because they brought the pace car out at me instead of Jake Zemke and Neil Hodgson and Ben Bostrom. And if they hadn't done that, my bike was still in good enough shape where I think I could have at least got a podium out of it. But I did the big mistake, and then the AMA compounded it by putting me a lap down with their pace car. And then you had the engine vapor lock, and we had a couple of things. And every time we're in the lead, every time we're right there, and it was just really, I guess, not meant to be number 6. It's tough to do.
Then we've got someone wants to know, what red wine are you drinking?
This is a educated guess. I love that. Abstract. Justin, I like these wineries. Cabernet, and I do enjoy a glass of wine. It's good for you.
Good. We have one last one here from Peter Derry, who runs the Spring Motorcycle Show, and he's asking if you'd ever entertain the idea of an appearance at a Toronto Motorcycle Show in the future.
I believe I did it a long time ago. I was out there, and that's fun. That would be probably something really a lot of fun today. In today's world with COVID and everything, it's that would be tough. But yeah, why not? Just that'd be great to see the people again.
Thanks a lot, Miguel. Everybody really appreciates that.
Miguel, I'll finish up with a couple of questions. What was your favorite racetrack of all the ones you raced at, and who would you say was your fiercest competitor?
Best racetrack is probably tied a little bit. I mean, I really like Mid-Ohio. People know Mid-Ohio and Brainerd, but Le Castellet, Bol d'Or in France was just a fantastic racetrack, fantastic location. The tracks in Europe I liked a lot because they flow better. Catarino's a great track. But yeah, favorite one, I think Le Castellet was just crazy fast track. Well, the toughest competitor, I mean, not a tough, but for sure, I think Scott Russell comes to mind, and Jake Zemke in the extreme class. And, I never got to battle really hard with Ben Spies because there was definitely a problem there in that series those years. But Ben's a great guy, and it's sad to see that he got hurt and didn't keep going to MotoGP. But I definitely had some tough competitors, and I enjoyed them, all of them. Aaron Yates was another guy that when he got it going on, he was a tough character for sure.
Well, Miguel, I want to thank you for being on Track Announcer's Notebook tonight. I had the honor and privilege of announcing all 5 of those Daytona 200 wins, and who knows? Maybe I'll get a chance to announce the 6th one if that opportunity ever arises. But enjoy the golf out there in Vegas. We've put the golf clubs away here, but I think you know that Jordan Zoke is an avid golfer. So when this COVID stuff is all behind us, I think we're going to try to organize a Canadian motorcycle industry golf tournament, and we'll have to get you up here as one of the participants. All the best,
awesome.
all the best, Miguel, and thanks for being on the show tonight.
Thank you very much, Pat. Great to see you guys. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Well, Stuart, probably our most attended show I think we've had since we started these back in May. Again, our thanks to Miguel Duhamel for being our special guest tonight. And we're actually going to have Miguel's manager on, Alan Labrosse, who wore many, many hats in his career, and most recently the owner of St. Eustache Racetrack that has closed. But before that, Alan was one of our top 250 Grand Prix riders, won an AMA National at Brainerd back in 1985. And we'll have him on the show next Monday night to talk about one of his top clients, Miguel Duhamel, among other things. And that's our show for next week. So have a great week, and we'll see you back here next Monday night, our February 1st edition of Track Announcer's Notebook. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Thanks to Miguel Duhamel, and to my co-host and producer, Stuart Nodell. Good evening.